Welcome back to Perspectives here on Arise News. Inibehe Effiong is a lawyer and principal counsel at Inibehe Effiong Law Chambers, a human rights and public interest lawyer who has been involved in a lot of litigation practice. He describes himself as enemy of oppressors who is committed to ending corruption and injustice in Nigeria. Inibehe is a board member of African Chamber of Media and Information Literacy. For more than 3 years, he was a national legal advisor of African Action Congress political party. And as a human interest activist, her guest has never pulled the punches in standing up to the authorities in his passionate defense of human rights and due process. Joining us as well to discuss President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's first-year scorecard is Otumba Abiodun Ajiboye, a seasoned political communications expert and media strategist. Ajiboye is at the moment Director General, National Institute for Cultural Orientation. It's my pleasure to have both of you on this show. Good to see you both on this show. So let's start with you, Inibehe.
Thank you for having me. Good morning.
Thank you for being with us here on Perspectives. Let me start with you, Inibehe. How would you assess the Tinubu administration after 1 year in office? In what areas or sectors would you say Tinubu has made the greatest impact over the past 1 year? Or the least impact over the past 1 year? Inibehe, that's you.
Let me start by saying that some of us had cause to quarrel with the campaign mantra of this president when he decided to run for the office of president. When he said that his campaign mantra or slogan was renewed hope agenda, there was some element of duplicity to it because you can only renew what already exists, right? You do not renew what is not in existence. Nigeria under the former president, Buhari, was ran to the ground. The country was barely functioning. We had a president who was barely present in the governance of this country. The economy was nothing to write home about under President Buhari. Insecurity had gone on to a very terrible level. People were being slaughtered and killed. There was general lack of respect for the rule of law. In other words, Nigerians were going through excruciating hopelessness under the Buhari regime, which this current president played a very significant role in bringing to power. So Buhari left Nigeria ruined, he left Nigeria destroyed, he left Nigeria poor, he left Nigeria terribly indebted, which has now been inherited by this current government. So when Tinubu said, I was coming to renew hope, there was some level of deception to that because you cannot renew what does not exist. It would have been okay to just say hope agenda. But when you say renew hope, it means the person you are taking over from has given hope that you are seeking to renew. It is important that I started on that point. Now, Tinubu came in, the technocrat, in quote, the man who built Lagos, the man who is the reputed or describes himself as somebody that is talented in finding other talented people to work with him. After taking some time, he came out with a very scandalous number of ministers, the highest in the history of our country, about 44 to 45. We would have thought that a government that is coming in at a time of economic recession, at the time that the federal government was struggling to pay salaries to meet up its debt obligations, would be more prudent. But that was a clear message to Nigerians that, look, this is going to be a Father Christmas administration. It's a time to compensate the boys, because if you are appointing 45 ministers at a time that you are supposed to avoid every element or form of profligacy, one wonders what the intention was. But what have we seen so far? 1 year after, the president has, given some indication that he wants to do some things differently from the former regime. But if you look at the indices, really, in terms of economy, I think most Nigerians will agree that the economy of our country is worse today. Inflation has become worse. The purchasing power of the Nigerian people, which, curiously, Tinubu promised to reduce. If you remember that speech where he said, reduce their purchasing power, I think that is one campaign promise he has kept to, because today, Nigerians cannot even buy cassava. Nigerians cannot buy gari. Nigerians cannot even buy agbado that this president promised them. Right? Because the cost of basic goods and services have gone up.
Okay,
in the markets. From rice to the smallest of things that the families need, Nigerians cannot purchase.
Okay,
look at institutional reforms. So far, I haven't seen anything drastic in terms of institutional reforms. From law enforcement, 1 year after, President Tinubu has not shown Nigerians any indication to reform the police, to improve the welfare of police officers significantly, to empower our soldiers who are being slaughtered, who are still not having the arms that they need to fight insurgency. We have not seen any indication to stop lawlessness in our country. In Abuja, where Tinubu stays and governs as president, soldiers seal up Banex Plaza. You cannot have that under a democratic country. So 1 year after institutional reform, I haven't seen anything. Okay. I haven't heard anything about electoral reform. Okay. No bill, no executive bill has been sponsored for electoral reform to address the issues that arose from the last general election. Okay, I have not seen anything in terms of accountability and transparency. Okay, in terms of making disclosures about how public funds is being spent. Okay, let us look at infrastructure.
Thank you. Let me get on to the next guest here, because we have another guest that is busy. So can we have Mr. Ajiboye, please? Mr. Ajiboye, you just had that fiery response from your co-guest in Abuja. I want to ask you, a lot of Nigerians appear poorly disposed to the president's handling of the fuel subsidy issue. Then there's also the issue about insecurity, which Inibehe just spoke about. So can you share your thoughts with us on this, please? There are two questions in one. First and foremost, the fuel subsidy and Ruth, the security.
With a lot of humility, I can see that my colleague has succeeded in entertaining you, as an activist. You don't expect him to see anything good in what is going on in his environment. His predecessors never did, and I'm not surprised. So it's like asking a man, to give you a report on water in a glass that is half. He said the glass is half empty. Someone will say the glass is half full. It depends on what side of hope you belong in life. So for me, I'm a very hopeful human being. I do not share his acidic pessimism. And no nation can run with any citizen who sees administration and governance in this perspective. That's as far as that is concerned. Well, as far as we are concerned, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is doing very well. Yes, as a matter of fact, we have God to thank for bringing him at this time.
Can you give us instances?
Because as you all are aware, to run an economy as delicate as we have will require somebody who is super intelligent with the requisite experience and enough know-how to get people who can manage certain sectors of the economy. With respect to fuel subsidy, we all know that there was no alternative to removing fuel subsidy at the time we did. As a matter of fact, the previous government did not even provide funding for fuel subsidy in June 2023. So there was nothing this government could have done. Besides that, removing fuel subsidy was the most economically intelligent action anybody would take at that time. However, anybody who has a bit of knowledge of economics will know that once the subsidy is removed, there will be attendant consequences such as inflation that followed. The next thing is, how do we manage it? You see, critics will always forget when problems are brewing, but they would ignore the time problems are brewing, and they would begin to talk about how bad the problems have been. Nigeria have been on this trajectory of collapse for many years. A country that does not, an economy that is not productive. We don't produce anything. I wonder what the people in the activist community, what they think of an economy that is not productive. What do you expect to happen? And we have a man who is now doing everything possible to bring things back to normal. Some people are going haywire on the consequences of his action. Like you said, a pregnant woman will go through some pains. The joy comes when the child is delivered. That's the way we see it, and we are being very honest about it.
Okay. Can we have
anybody can say anything, and let me even tell you again, public perception about government and governance is dependent on many things. The political landscape is polarized. All of the hue and cry you hear is from opposition. The Labour Party on one hand, PDP on the other, and their followers. So it may seem like their voices are huge, their voices are on top. But we know that as a government, we are tackling the problems as statistically as possible.
But basically what you're saying is that you always...
That's just it.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. Even if you say that the opposition parties are the only ones that criticize the government, that's not particularly true. I think every average Nigerian has their right to make their observations.
I didn't say they are the only ones. I said their voices are loud because they orchestrate the criticism. And it's okay, it's their strategy. I don't...
No. But so are voices of Nigerians generally.
It's not a problem.
It's not. I don't think we should reduce this to party or no party
yes,
politics.
Ruth, it's natural that Nigerians, we see, because I just told you the attendant consequence of some of the reforms we are taking is those kind of hardships. We need to go through that to get to El Dorado.
Anyway,
there's no way, there's no country in the world that will face the kind of economic situation we face and will say it won't go through pains. We just need as elites to educate the people and let the people understand that these are just the natural pains we should go on.
So your duty is to send that message across.
I'm sorry, I'm not hearing you. So maybe sometime you are telling me things I'm not hearing.
I can hear you very clearly. You're screaming, so I can hear you very clearly. I'm just saying that you owe it to the Nigerian populace to send your message across in the most understanding manner and to make sure that the welfare of the average Nigerian is paramount in the execution of your administration. That's what I'm saying. Now, can we get back to Inibehe?
I agree with that. Okay. If I can respond.
Okay. No, I want to pass the next question to Inibehe. We'll come back to you soon enough. Inibehe, you said Tinubu has the largest number of ministers of all Nigerian presidents dead or alive. And that the size of this government and its impact, what do you think is the size of this government? What do you think this has cost for the size of the government and the impact on national treasury? Considering these appointments, do you think Tinubu has managed...
Let me start by saying that...
Let me finish. Can I finish my question?
We have to make a choice.
Can I just finish my question first?
Yes, I got your question.
Yes, and I wanted to ask you another question alongside it.
Between Asebic... Yes, I just want to say that to respond to what the panelists said. That if we have to make a choice between Asebic pessimism, as he has characterized my submission, and irrational optimism, I think Asebic pessimism is better under our current atmosphere. But I'm not being, I do not fit into that description. Suffice it to say that if you are a president that appreciates the urgency of now, if you are a president that is in sync with the reality of the Nigerian state today, namely, that this is a country that can barely survive. This is a country that cannot meet its debt obligations. This is a country that is going through a financial crunch. This is a country that cannot even fund the most basic needs of government, not to even talk about social amenities. This is a country that is even struggling today, right, to pay a new minimum wage. The NLC has just issued a strike notice, by the way. You do not come in and say, I am appointing 44 individuals as ministers. This is the president who told us he believed in restructuring. And you are coming in, right, instead of reducing the cost, and you see the hypocrisy of it. You are saying you are going to implement a Rusanya report, you are going to streamline some agencies, but you are increasing ministerial positions, some of which are not even necessary. What does that do to the government? What that does is that you are sending a message to Nigerians that, come and eat, the feast is ready. Right? You do not appreciate the fact that the country is broke. The country is broke. You now live in ostentation. Do you see the convoy of this president, by the way? It was in Lagos a few days ago. The whole of Ikoyi and surrounding areas was shut down for hours. Do you see Tinubu when he's passing in Abuja? The number of vehicles in his entourage? They told us Buhari was going to reduce the cost of governance. We didn't see it. The presidential fleet, what have they done about it? Sometimes ago, we heard in the media that it was going to sell 1 or 2 or lists or whatever. That has not been implemented. So, those in government are living large, while the masses are suffering. And you are overtaxing Nigerians. You have increased the cost of electricity tariff from 66 kilowatts to almost 250, right? And you have now categorized Nigerians under what looks like an apartheid policy, to say you have band A, you have band B, you have band C, which I have even said is fraudulent, by the way. Because if you are saying that people should now pay for electricity on the basis of availability, this electricity that they will now pay for, have you increased, right, the national grid? Since the president, this president came into office, what is the capacity in terms of electricity that has been added? So you simply just increase taxation, you are taxing Nigerians on everything. What have you done, President Tinubu, to show that you believe in making sacrifices?
Okay.
The office of First Lady is running actively. Buhari, of course, was hypocritical about it by saying, oh, no First Lady's office, but we had office of Wife of President. But this one officially today, the office of First Lady is running. The office of the First Son is running. The office of the First Daughter is running. I think Tinubu everywhere the president goes. He even takes preeminence over ministers. That is not how to run a country at a time that we are going through so much crisis.
Okay.
So even in terms of the character of this government, I have strong reservations.
Okay,
You do not put Nigerians through so much penury, through so much suffering, on all ramifications. The president wakes up in the morning, is not happy, he increases taxation.
Okay, let's get back to
That is not how to run a country.
Let's get back to Ajiboye. So that it's a balanced conversation. Ajiboye, you've heard the vitriol of Inibehe, especially when it comes to excessive spending, when it comes to the administration and their ministers and what have you, political minds. So what do you think? Do you think Tinubu has managed Nigeria's diversity well enough to engender a stronger nation? And then let's also talk about corruption and is supposed to fight against that. How do you think this government has done so far?
See, Ruth, I have told you, madam, that to run a country is not a function of activism or activists. Activists are only necessary to do the...
You've made your point on that. You've made your point on that. Let's focus on the answer.
So
the answer to the question.
I really cannot, some of the things he said, anyway.
We are pressed for time, so focus on the answers.
Talking about.
Yes. I talked about corruption.
Yeah, you asked me about...
I talked about corruption.
Corruption, that's right.
And how it's being handled.
I'm not sure any government has handled corruption as effectively as Tinubu's government has handled it. The EFCC has had to confront major issues, bold issues. And you can see the chairman of the EFCC. When he talks like somebody who is given the right freedom to operate. And is actually doing what is meant and supposed to do without any political interference.
But do you believe
Don't forget,
do you believe he has managed...
If you trace this history of corruption in Nigeria...
Sorry, go ahead.
You said what?
I said, do you believe that Tinubu's
If you trace the history of corruption in Nigeria... Please, let me... Tinubu's diverse something has done what, please?
I said, do you believe that Tinubu has managed Nigeria's diversity well enough to engender a stronger nation?
I believe so. I sincerely believe so. You see, because there is a lot of difference between politics and governance. When it comes to governance, the president communicates with his cabinet. You understand? And I know the kind of communication the government is giving with respect to diversity, either cultural, ethnic, or whatever diversity in Nigeria. And for those of us in the culture sector, the argument is, look, locate a cultural identity that can give Nigeria a national identity. In other areas, the president has been considerably bothered about the diversity of Nigeria, and he says, let us use our diversity to engender and strengthen our unity and to our advantage, rather than use the diversity because the diversity, if you look at it very well, it can be channeled positively and give Nigeria a substantial benefit, rather than the kind of disintegration that a lot of people may believe or think the diversity will yield. So I see him making enough effort to unite the people of Nigeria from every angle, because it is only in unity of Nigeria that Nigeria can thrive, that we can be productive, we can come up technologically and every other measure, of development. So I personally see that he's doing the best he can.
Okay, it's good that you said that, but I wanted to also ask I want to ask both of you actually, what do you think of this sudden decision to reintroduce the old national anthem? And this is my last question for both of you. What do you think about that? Let's start with you in Inibehe.
Well, let me quickly say something about that. The argument people have against the old national anthem is the fact that it was handed down by the British. And that is not even true. The content of the old national anthem that has been reviewed and brought back appears to address our problem as a people a lot more. I do not see what exactly is structurally wrong in reintroducing the old national anthem, Nigeria We Hail Thee. A national anthem that speaks to our diversity and our problems at this point in time. I do not see anything. All those that are criticizing the national anthem, introducing the old national anthem, is just for want of criticism.
Wait, Abiodun,
as usual.
You're not allowing me to ask you.
I really do not see anything.
Calm down. You're not allowing me to ask any questions. Before I go to Inibehe, what was wrong with the Arise, O Compatriots anthem that we had? What was wrong with the wordings? How come we've used it for 20 years or so, and then all of a sudden we now decide that's not good enough? We want to now go back to where we're coming from. What was wrong with the second anthem?
Are you done with the question?
Yes, I am. I'm asking you.
Good. And I want to ask you, I just said it in the last statement I made, that the new national anthem, so to speak, that is Nigerian We Hail Thee, appears to address the situation of Nigeria at this time better.
Oh, okay.
I mean, that's what the way I see it. Perhaps that's the way the president sees it too. And of course, he didn't just wake up one morning and say revert back to the old national anthem. It went through the processes of National Assembly and all of that, and he got the bill accented at the end of the day. Okay. So I really do not see anything wrong with it.
Okay. Inibehe, do you have anything that you want to add to that? And then, in your
quickly. Yes, quickly. He said Tinubu is fighting corruption. I don't want us to have a debate on that. But Tinubu never promised to fight corruption. He did not campaign on anti-corruption. So that is the point I want to make. Secondly, Femi Adesina once insinuated that maybe there is some witchcraft or voodoo in the villa that disturbs our leaders. I don't know whether that was true. But when you see some of the things that happen in this country, you begin to wonder what inspires our politicians to do the things they do. National anthem is not going to change anything. It shows that our politicians do not prioritize the things that matter. They are majoring on the minor. I have 2 problems with it. The first is that you do not change a major national symbol like the anthem that people have sung for decades without proper consultation. As if you are just decreeing it, passing a decree. No proper engagement with the Nigerian people. And you just sit in the Abiodun National Assembly, right, with the executive and bring it to law by force without proper engagement. That was wrong. Secondly, has that affected the inflation? Has it reduced the cost of fuel? Has it affected the price of cassava, gado, and abado in the market? Has it affected anything? Has this changed the security in the country? Changing the national anthem will not change anything. If this president, if this government is serious, it is the character of those in government that should change. It is the policies that will affect our life that should change. Changing national anthem will not make Nigerians patriotic. We are just deceiving ourselves. Whether it is Nigeria we healthy, whether it is a rise to come patriot, sing it 100 times in the villa every morning, every afternoon. It will not make the president to do the right thing.
Thank you so much.
What Nigerians want is a government that is sensitive. It is a government that listens to the yearning of our people. Prioritize the things that are important. If you want to pursue structural reforms, begin by having conversation on whether we should have a unicameral or a bicameral legislature.
Thank you so much.
Whether we should have 45 or 44 ministers.
Thank you so
They
much.
are not addressing that.
Thank you so much,
They are
Mr.
perceived
Inibehe.
triviality.
Thank you, thank you. We are really pressed for time now. Thank you so much for your very vibrant opinions. Thank you so much, Mr. Abiodun, too, for your own opinions too on how Nigeria should move forward. All we pray for is an economy that would grow and become better, so we can have greater children that would rule this country in our tomorrows. Thank you so much for being with us here on Perspective.